Have you ever thought of compiling the source codes or the project files via code and generating an output assembly all via code? Yes, it is possible in .NET. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to see via code how you will be able to compile source code compile source code which is stored in a file into an output assembly, compile the source code and generate an output assembly from it via code, via C sharp code. So we will see how it can be done. If it is that functionality is provided by System.CodeDom namespace. And here we are going to see via code how it is done. Therefore, in first part, what we need to do here is we need to actually read all the CS files into a data structure in our code and store all the code as a plain string in a data structure. Therefore, here this array of codes is nothing but it is an array of all the source codes that we need to compile. And for example, it is reading from the this particular directory. Therefore, I'll just open the directory. Therefore, this is the directory from where it is trying to read, and this particular source file is nothing but a particular normal C sharp file which contains which defines some classes and namespace, etc. Therefore, this particular file will be read using file.read all text, and it will be stored in this particular data structure list of string data structure as a plain string. Therefore, this code will be stored as a plain string. And next, we are trying to do is, and we are trying to actually specify the assemblies which this particular source code depends upon. For example, what I meant is this particular source file requires these all namespace to be present to be able to to be able to compile this particular file. We need all these namespaces, and these namespaces are present in some assemblies. Fortunately for us, I have taken a very basic use case where we are using only the system assembly. Therefore, we this particular file only depends upon the system assembly. If I, as a result of that, the default assemblies will already be loaded by our current application domain. Therefore, I am trying to get all the assemblies which are by default loaded by our program during the runtime. We can get that via this particular function, this particular API get assemblies, which is defined in app domain dot current domain. Get assemblies will give you all the loaded assemblies in the current application domain, and I'm trying to filter that out based on the location. If the location is not null, I am trying to get all those assemblies there. Later on, we will see what we are doing with those assemblies, and then create an instance of C Sharp code provider. Therefore, this is a very useful guy which will help us to compile our source code. Therefore, first we have to define the compiler parameters. Therefore, what all parameters we need to specify for in which configuration we need to compile our source code, that we have to specify using the compiler parameters. We can configure this compiler parameters. There are different properties associated with this compiler parameters which we can modify via code. Therefore, one is a generate in memory, whether we need to generate this particular assembly in memory, and we have to add the referenced assemblies, means which what all assemblies that particular source code needs to depend upon is depending upon. We have to specify it here. We have to add that assemblies here. There we have to specify the what all assemblies we got from the current app domain. We have to add it, the reference assembly, and we have to specify which what is the output assembly that needs to be generated. That auto generated DLL should be the name of the output assembly which needs to generate. It will be generated in the output directory path. So then we have to use that code provider instance and call this compile assembly from source. This compile assembly from source takes in the source file, source code as a string, as a list of string, and it generates the output assembly using the compiler parameters as an input argument. Takes in the input argument and takes in the source code array. and then once we get the result, this provides gives us the result of the compilation, and we can check if there are any compilation errors in place by using this particular property called errors dot hash errors. It will check for the any errors while during the compilation phase, and if there are no errors, I'm just trying to print compilation is successful. Let's try to run this file, this particular thing up, and try to see whether it is working. Yeah, I didn't put a waiting statement, therefore I'll just write console or something like that. So that the output window stays, window doesn't disappear, it stays there. Therefore, yes, compilation is successful. That means that our compilation process succeeded, and we can see that you can just put a breakpoint to see the debug values. Therefore, we'll just expand the array of codes. We'll try to see array of code what it contains. As you can see, if we try to see view, it is the same CS code which we have in that particular CS file, and compiler parameters, and compiler params is nothing but this compiler parameters that we have specified here, and assemblies. If we see the list of assemblies, just to the result view, therefore it loads the default assemblies which are currently present in our current application domain. Therefore it loaded system.core.dll assembly and system.dll assembly, which our source file depends upon. Therefore we have to load the necessary assemblies which are required by the source files in the reference assemblies. Add those in the reference assemblies. So that's majorly how to actually do this thing. And let's see where this particular auto generated or DL is generated. Let's go to our output path. Let's go to our output path bin debug. Since it is generated in compiled in the run in the debug mode, we'll go to the bin debug output directory, and there we can see that auto generated.dll. Therefore, this particular guy is generated by this particular C sharp code provider. And since this DLL is dynamically generated, we can actually use reflection at later point to actually invoke functionalities out of this DLL. Since it is dynamically generated, we can't add a static reference to it. Therefore, we can use the reflection to invoke the functionalities belonging to that particular assembly. So that's how we will dynamically try to compile our source code and generate an output assembly out of it. And then use that assembly at later point in time and load that assembly using the reflection in the particular application domain, in whatever application domain where we want to load that assembly. And then we will be able to invoke the functionality with the use of reflection. Yeah, that's majorly how it can be done. How this particular portion covers how to generate that particular output assembly from the source code. This is particularly a basic way how it can be done. For I will be linking the blog post where the particular source code is present, and it describes the process of doing the writing this particular source code, and the source code is also available in that particular blog post. You can check out that. And yeah, that's majorly for today's video. Do share your valuable comments, valuable feedback via comments, and try to and do like and subscribe the channel if you like the content, and do share with your friends. Yeah, that's it for today's video, and have a nice day. Thank you.